This is Shaughnessy McDaniel from Siege Perilous, and you're listening to the Brutally Delicious Podcast.
One, two, three, four. The Brutally Delicious Podcast. The Brutally Delicious Podcast. The Brutally Delicious Podcast. The Brutally Delicious Podcast.
70,000 tons of metal.
The original, the world's biggest heavy metal cruise. 60 bands, 4 days, one cruise ship, only 3,000 tickets.
From Miami, Florida to Ocho Rios, Jamaica.
January 30th to February 3rd, 2025. 5 days and 4 nights mingling side by side with your favorite artists in this incredible fan-friendly scenario that has no comparison.
Go to 70,000tons.com and book your ticket
now.
Wait. I don't care whatever intro Bruce has to do. That is I have that shirt, and you just made my day with that. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to give you fair warning here, Shaughnessy. I was prepping this morning, and I'm not the biggest, fantasy power metal kind of guy, right? It's just, it resonates with some and doesn't with others, and I appreciate it, whatever. But when I was doing this, I was thinking, man, my partner, Dark, who you're going to meet right now, is probably the biggest power metal, fantasy metal, I don't know, can I say nerd metal kind of guy there is.
Hell yeah.
So I asked him to join us to do this a lot better. So thank you for taking the time and putting up with me. Yeah. Dark is the man when it comes to that kind of stuff. But so let's just jump in then. Siege Perilous. You guys are from Northern Colorado, is that what I'm seeing?
Yeah. So most of us live in Greeley, which is about an hour north of Denver. We got a couple members who are in the Denver area as well, so it's kind of our general zone.
Okay, I'm going to just start it off, and then we're probably going to just see where it goes and let Dark lead the way. But for those not familiar with Siege Perilous, like myself, can you give us the 2-sentence elevator boardroom pitch?
Yes. Epic fantasy power metal with some old school metal vibes.
Yeah, so when I was describing it to Dark a minute ago, I said fantasy power metal, but it's darker, heavier, and sludgier, more garage-ish. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely, and especially our earlier stuff, like our first EP. Had a lot more of those sludgy vibes. Some of that was us learning how production works and realizing we needed to hire someone. I definitely think it still has darker and heavier tones with the new EP creations call for sure.
Dark, you want to jump in?
Yeah. So this is probably not even the question I was prepping to ask, but I need to. When I hear Siege Perilous, that's something relating to King Arthur, right? And
yeah. So a lot of times when we're talking to people, they assume that we took our name from the Camelot album, which we didn't. It's a good guess, right? There's already Epica out there named after a Camelot album. But yeah, so in Arthurian mythology, the Siege Perilous is the seat that can only be sat on by the knight who retrieves the Holy Grail, and anybody else who sits on it will immediately die. So we thought that was a pretty cool, heavy metal idea. Also, if you don't know any of the background on it, it just sounds like a siege that's dangerous. So I think that also plays off pretty well. Just, I like trying to catch people at different knowledge levels so that we're not being too, esoteric or whatever.
I fucking forgot Camelot had an album called that.
That's we saw that a lot in the reviews.
What's up?
You guys are gonna absolutely laugh at me, and I'm gonna show you my power metal knowledge. Epica came from a Camelot album song.
Yes.
Yeah, it's their second or third album. I think
I was today when I learned that.
Yeah, that was a bit later. It's the second or third one with Khan, but not
Oh yeah.
But yeah, but you said you were from Colorado. So when I hear this name and I think a band named after King Arthur, I'm expecting them to be from Germany or Sweden. You're from Colorado.
We definitely are very very Euro inspired, European power metal bands. I mean, we love our other American power metal bands. I love Unleash the Archers, Lords of the Trident. There's a lot of really good stuff going on there. I do think that we take a lot of influence from the European bands, though, from Rhapsody, Blind Guardian. Like, I mean, I could list names for the whole interview, but that probably wouldn't be very good podcast, would it?
So what was like catching me? So I went to Mad with Power like 2 months ago, or Echo, whatever. So you mentioned Words of the Trident, like you know what Mad with Power is, Shaughnessy?
Oh yeah, our friend Celestial Wizard played there, and then we opened for. We played before Lords of the Trident at the Mile High Power Festival just a couple months ago, so it was great to get to hang out with Ty and the guys.
I was going to ask about that because like Celestial Wizard was telling me like, yeah, there's a bunch of you in Denver, and I'm like, when did that become like a hub for this kind of stuff? Is it the snow?
It waxes and wanes. I'm old enough to remember the last waxing and its subsequent waning, which I wasn't in any bands at the time, but it was about like 12 or 13 years ago. There was a nice little wave of bands from the area too. There was Kellador, Vacant Throne, Frosthane, and so like there was this movement a while ago, but it was a very different vibe back then. I would say the vibe of the community was a lot less constructive than it is now, and I think that's what ended up happening with a lot of those bands. Is they could be really cutthroat with each other sometimes, and then eventually it doesn't become worth it because it's not fun anymore.
Yeah. That was just wild to me. That like, it's Denver. I never like known that is like. Forgive me for being an East Coast asshole. Bruce is too, but I'm just gonna take the heat on this.
Hey.
But you're East Coast schmuck.
But not an asshole.
Yeah. Okay. If you have to say it. But yeah. I'm trying to think. Like, is there like some mega star that like is associated with Denver? And it's clear.
Jag Panzer is from Colorado Springs.
I forgot about that.
So yeah, that's a thing that people forget is that like, I mean, especially because like unlike folk bands from Colorado that get big, like the Lumineers and stuff, right? They're like their Colorado tie ends up being a big part of like their branding, their personality, and things like that. That just doesn't happen with power metal in Colorado because Colorado isn't known for metal. But yeah, there's a lot of great bands. I mean, Celestial Wizard's crushing it. They just got into the studio to record their follow-up to Winds of the Cosmos. I'm pretty excited about that. Viper Witch just dropped their album. I don't know if you've listened to them. It's like old school heavy metal. It's got some power vibes, mostly because it's got a little synth flavor. But like there's so much good music happening here. It's really, really great.
That's wild.
Where is Skeleton Witch from? Are they also Colorado? Sorry.
Viper Witch? Yeah, Viper Witch is from Denver.
Skeleton Witch.
Oh, Skeleton Witch.
I don't know.
Maybe. I know my friends have played with them before, but anyway.
Let's talk about the new EP, Betrayal of the Dracolich.
So that was our first EP. Our new EP is Creations Call that we dropped in August. Betrayal of the Dracolich, was our first EP that we dropped back in 2 years ago.
Right. What I was talking about, what I really want to get at though is so that record to this record, it's a big difference if you listen to the two. I only sampled each one. Was that a conscious effort or something that sort of evolved naturally?
It was conscious in a variety of ways. Some of it was that like Betrayal of the Dracolich was a good getting out the door, getting out there, getting some songs down, and we do love those tracks. But I mean, as you had kind of mentioned, like the production quality, mostly because we did a lot of this ourselves. We had our friend Wyatt Jordan from Star Wraith mixed it, and he did a really good job with the tracks that we gave him. For Creations Call, we actually got into the studio, and that was the big thing. Is having somebody help us through the production process from start to finish just yielded massively better results. We've also learned a lot about songwriting in 2 years that I think is also apparent by the way that the songs are just composed and arranged.
Do you guys, I'm going to let Dark jump in a second, but do you guys all write together, or is it more the efforts of one particular member?
So we write together. We oftentimes the way it works is that somebody will kind of be the lead writer on a song, but that is spread out. The Creations Call EP is a lot of Scott's writing, our lead guitarist. But I had a pretty good hand. In quite a bit of it, and then the title track is written by our bass player Eric. So we spread it around, and we're spreading things around even a little more differently for the full length album that we're in the process of writing right now. So that's been a developing process that I think is super great, because I think you got to kind of have processes and procedures for how that works so it doesn't get messy. But I do prefer a collaborative process over like one person doing all the writing and then the rest of us are just kind of along for the ride.
I get that. Dark?
Yeah, so forgive me because I haven't had a chance to like listen to it all yet, but with the whole collaborative process, something I've always wondered about is, when you think of like a lot of 70s rock, not like Zeppelin or whatever, but stuff like AC/DC, it sounds pretty like that I understand how that can all be written by a bunch of dudes in a room together, being like, okay, now let's jump to the pre-chorus. I mean, I love AC/DC, but it's dirt simple. With stuff like power metal and like, a lot of times with, the genre hits like 7-minute songs, multiple tempo changes, that strikes me like, I don't know, that seems like so much harder to write as a collaborative process. Like that's where I would think it's one dude sitting in his room, or their room, excuse me, saying like, let's maybe here we put in the key change, maybe here we like slow things down or add in like an ambient sound of rain falling. Like you can do this in one room, like a bunch of dudes.
Well, and that's the thing is that our collaborative process, sometimes it involves some of that, right? But that's usually what happens, and this is what I said, like our process involves like there's somebody who's kind of the lead songwriter on the song, right? And what they tend to do is they tend to write the skeleton. They tend to write like the basic like rhythmic pieces, and then from there, once we have like a basic outline of the song, then we go and collectively we make changes, and then we can start building the layers of it together. You're right. You can't just like jam out a 12-minute song in our genre. There certainly are bands who can. But so yeah, ours has kind of a specific but evolving process that we use to try to make sure that everybody can throw in ideas, pitch in ideas, and that it is collaborative. But yes, each song kind of has one person who's driving that song, and then the rest of us try to think of and build up like different layers or throw in different ideas to give it more flavor.
That's awesome.
Fair enough.
For real. But yeah, something I also like always wondered about, and a little topical in the news. So, do you share songwriting credits? And I'll explain in a second why I'm asking that.
Yes, so the thing that we had done, like we always fill out our split sheets. Not that anybody's come knocking in a way that we've needed them yet, but we have them. And so that's the main thing, is that like by just doing everything up front. And what we had done was like a standard for the EP, at least, was like a standard. Like if you were the lead writer on it, then it looks like this percentage, and then everybody gets somewhat of a percentage. And so that was the way we had kind of built that out. To share songwriting credits, and then usually what it is we like first credit the person whose lead is usually first credited on it, and then after that we just go in alphabetical order. So that's kind of how we smoothed over that process. But we also like we're all friends like outside of this. So like while ego stuff does still sometimes happen a little bit and you've got to mitigate it just because we care about what we're doing and that's important. You just got to, figure out how to do that without being a jerk. And I think we've managed to make that work pretty well.
Of course. And I guess
what I was Dark, why did we ask?
Yeah, exactly. So as you may have heard on your side of the country, unfortunately, Jakey Lee was shot multiple times sometime last week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there's a well-known battle there with songwriting credits, which is apparently he did not write most of Bark at the Moon. I make no claims as to this. I just will say that's where I was going with that is in the age of Spotify, does it matter? Is it an ego thing or like you just said? No,
I mean, in terms of songwriting credits and things, I mean, I think like for us when we were figuring out how we were gonna divvy up the splits on this, it's not really about money for us, right? Because like well there isn't any coming in at the moment, right? So and I think it's good to we just wanted the way that it fit to be reflective of our efforts, and so that the number that's tied to that is really just about like ownership and effort, and it's less about like money or ego or any of that kind of stuff, and just in a way that we just all feel is fair and equitable. The difference is when you're writing on Bark at the Moon, right? There's going to be actual money involved. That's going to be money that's involved forever. And
right.
I mean, well, yeah, that could happen to us at some point. That's not my goal, hope, or intention. My goal, hope, and intention is just to make music that I like and that I'm proud of. And so from that standpoint, that's also why it's important to get the splits right, so that like just from a legal standpoint, I'm like, well, this song mostly belongs to me because I was the one who worked on it the most, or it belongs more to our guitarist than me because he was the one who spent the time arranging and organizing and putting the song together, and then we contributed in a different way, in a smaller way, to that success.
What do you guys have planned for this live?
So we've started playing really all the tracks from this EP live. Our appearance at Mile High Power Festival was the day after the EP dropped, which was a cool way to get to kind of celebrate that with a bunch of our favorite bands from the local community and big national acts. Ether Realm and Seven Spires were the headliners for that show, and it was really cool to get to hang out with them. And then really like our kind of plan for the next year as we're working on the album is just really trying to increase the tightness and the showmanship of our live show. My voice might sound a little tired because this weekend was a double whammy in Denver. Iron Maiden was here on Saturday, and then Judas Priest was here last night.
So, man, that's crazy.
Yeah, so I have had a weekend.
So I'm going to bring it up before Dark does, I guess. Did you hear the news today?
Oh, about Paul Di'Anno. Yeah, I just saw that as I sat down.
Man,
yeah,
that was
really
like
sad.
Killers was like one of the first records I ever put on that like ever really, got me sort of that bug.
Yeah, Wrathchild is the one cover that we play in our set right now. So
really,
yeah, we wanted to do Iron Maiden, but not do one of the more like predictable choices. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because you just can't go wrong with pretty much anything you pick. But we were like, yeah, let's do Wrathchild and give them something like a little different than they expect, but also a song that like people know. So yeah, especially over the last couple of years, got even more acquainted with those first couple of albums than I had previously. I mean, obviously, like I just have listened to them a lot more lately.
Right. Yeah, that was sad news turning on the Blabbermouth this morning.
Yeah, I mean, I know his health had been in a state of decline for a long time, and that he'd struggled. Yeah. But yeah, it is really a bummer, and it's a bummer that I think in a lot of ways he never quite got all of the respect that I think he deserved for for how he was involved in creating what Iron Maiden eventually became. So
something I was like hoping to check on again this with the Denver thing.
Yeah.
So, and it's funny because you can actually loop the Iron Maiden thing into this. Traditionally back in the 80s, you brought up Jag Panzer. There was kind of this difference in like power metal styles between like, US power metal, which was like Jag Panzer or that band that stormed the Capitol, you know them. And
yes,
then there's like European stuff like Halloween. Where the hell is Running Wild from? Are they Australian? I forget.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Yeah, but it almost seems like that kind of continues nowadays, and I'm counting you guys as this as well, which is like U.S. stuff. Like, I mean, there are exceptions, of course. I think Camelot sounds pretty European, but what I got out of you guys, and then like Visigoth, for instance, is it just something rougher on the American side? Like, why do you think this persists?
I do think that the influence. I think some of it is that because power metal in the US is very spread out, right? Like the concentration of bands is not the same as you would see if you lived in Germany or Sweden, right? And so I think what probably happens is that you get more flavors from other genres because you have to interact with the other subgenres more. And so like the fact I think the fact that like, if we play on a bill, like we're going to have to play with a doom metal band or a thrash metal band or something like that. And I think over time that ends up having the influences. I mean, some of it too is like, for me, my voice is just a little lower and gruffer. So that ends up translating into all of the tones so that they can be complementary.
Right.
What you're saying
makes sense. I never looked at it that.
So what you're saying is the American metal scene is a melting pot.
What? No. Yeah. I mean, I think so. I think because it's more spread out. You just don't have the concentration of fans for power metal in the same way. They're certainly here in Denver. We saw that at Mile High Power Fest, that they're here and they're ready for it, but it can be a harder audience to access too.
Funny. That's all I've got. Dark, you have anything else?
I guess just like harder audience to access. So you've mentioned like Mile High and like Wars of the Trident. Like, are you familiar? What the hell is the acronym? New Wave of Nice Metal Buds.
Yeah.
Given that like we're generally speaking, we power metal nerds tend to be on the at least musically speaking, on the more happy side and inclusion. Our songs are about like let's go slay dragons, or like in the Fellowship case, like we're all okay, versus war and drugs and shit.
Yeah.
Why is it that we're harder to access? Like you think, like at risk of being an asshole, it's closer to a circle jerk than it is to like a traditional mob?
No. And so like when I mean access, I mostly mean in terms of getting the word out about things that are happening, especially because I think in the US, there is like there is a fairly sizable core of people who just love power metal and they love the whole thing. There's a lot more people who like a lot of people I know, like they play Dungeons and Dragons, or they, like we do, we LARP. And they'll go and do something like that, and they'll have like one of those bands that they kind of know and like that does kind of the fantasy power metal stuff, but they don't really know like or have ever like seen or got to participate in the full scene for it. And I do think that's the kind of thing that like Mile High Power Fest, like it's a great thing for our area, because now there is kind of a place where we're kind of concentrating that and saying like, hey, here's a smattering of power metal from across the globe, including some people from your backyard. And so I think it's about like trying to find ways to to get a hold of them and to centralize them in places to build the overall community.
Nice.
Damn.
Very nice.
Nice.
I think we could probably end there, Dark.
I had one more stupid question based off the name of the band.
Yeah, please go.
Okay. Give me your best give me your best King Arthur movie.
Best King Arthur movie? Okay. I'd probably go just like, because it's so visual, it's so iconic, and I would probably go with Excalibur. I think that that other attempts to like make grittier or more realistic King Arthurs have often kind of fallen flat. I also really liked, when I was a kid, I was a huge fan of the like Merlin miniseries that was on NBC in like the mid 90s. I also thought that was a really fun version of it too, with Sam Neill as Merlin.
The one I grew up with was First Night with Sean Connery and Richard Gere. I don't know how well that one's aged.
I have some bad news. It hasn't aged very. I actually am not sure that I liked it very much at the time, because I was thinking about that, because I do love Sean Connery. But that movie, that was one of those where like they were trying to make
that wasn't too bad.
No, that was great. Thanks, guys. I had a great time.
Oh yeah, man.
All right.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. Good luck, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
All right. Cheers.